Hey guys, it's Jeff. Welcome to Whiskey. This is a channel where I offer my thoughts and opinions on a specific whiskey, and if you stick around to the end, I'll be giving it a score as well. If that sounds interesting, hit subscribe down below, and with that out of the way, let's jump into our review. Today, we're looking at the Bladnoch Vinaya. Stick around. Alright, so we're looking at a Bladnoch today. This is the second Bladnoch that I've looked at recently. Not too long ago, I looked at the Leora, which is a beautiful whiskey, cask strength, very nice. And a while back, I also looked at the 11-year-old, which I thought was genuinely spectacular. So it's safe to say that I'm a fan of the brand, or the rebranded brand. I've enjoyed every expression that I've had from them so far. Like I said, I had the 11, I had the Leora. I've also had the 14-year-old sherried expression, which is really good. But all of those were more expensive. This is actually the cheapest Bladnoch I've ever tried. Now, I don't know if this is the cheapest Bladnoch in the line, but it's definitely at the more affordable end of the range. And generally speaking, the range is not very affordable, especially when you get into the age-stated stuff. But I'm not here to bitch about that today. I want to talk about this stuff. Actually, no, I do want to bitch about it for a second. Hey, Bladnoch, your new range was already kind of expensive, but it's gotten more expensive. Why is an 11-year-old whiskey $100? What are you doing? Anyway, Vinaya is a Sanskrit word. It means gratitude. And that's a cultural reference that actually makes a lot of sense, because when you think about it, the Scottish Lowlands and the Indian subcontinent couldn't be more similar. Actually, the website reads, Vinaya is a Sanskrit word meaning respect and gratitude. It pays homage to the original founders of the distillery who paved the way as Bladnoch looks forward to an exciting new era of production and innovation. So that's reassuring, because for a minute there, I was worried that this was going to be marketing nonsense. Our whiskey is first fill bourbon and first fill sherry matured. As I said, it is no age stated. And yeah, I've liked everything I've had from the brand so far, so expectations are quite high for this one, even though it sits at the more entry-level price range. So let's find out about the whiskey. Let's jump into our review. In the meantime, if you'll kindly leave a like down below, that'd be greatly appreciated. So we can always count on Bladnoch for a craft presentation. This is 46.7% ABV. It's non-chill filtered, and our color is natural. So how do you say good job in Sanskrit? So I actually like the Bladnoch look, and I'll be the first to admit the bottles are kind of shit at pouring, but they look cool. They pop off the shelf. I think the design, the logo, the bottle, they're all very modern, very slick. I'm a sucker for these like very stylized bottles. Looks going to be 4 out of 5. It does say non-chill filtered and natural color. It gives us the casks. It gives us some tasting notes. All the info we need is there. I know the bottles do have their critics, but nah, they're cool. So I did add a splash of water to this. On the nose, this is bright and clean. I get lots of very fresh, juicy orchard fruits. I get like fresh apples, red apples, green apples. There's pears, there's peaches, there's plums. There's some nice tart citrus in there. There's also some nice creaminess in this, like heavy cream. There's some cinnamon, and I get a hint of that fermented fruit note that I get in pretty much every Bladnoch. Is it funky? It's almost funky. The palate and finish give us a nice full texture. I get spices and sweet fruits up front. It is a little bit heavier on the vanilla and the wood than I expected. We definitely do get the first fill influence. There's also green apples and pears, so again with the orchard fruits, again with that heavy cream note, it's a very floral whiskey. I get white chocolate in here. The finish lingers on black pepper and some oak. It's a medium finish. Alright, so this is pretty decent stuff. I'm pleasantly surprised. It's an enjoyable whiskey. Now, I'd be lying if I said it lit a fire under my ass. Weird expression. Why is burning your ass a good thing? It does have the Bladnoch house style, which is a house style that I'm obviously very fond of. This one is less weird than some of the other Bladnochs. I've heard Bladnoch get criticized for having like a cheesy note. I don't get much cheese in Bladnoch. Like I can see it in the 11, the Leora definitely less. The 14, no, it's sherried. But I definitely get like a fermented fruity note that kind of goes in a funky direction. But this one is not too funky. But yeah, regardless of how you interpret that note, whether it's like cheese or fermented fruit, it's a note that's not going to go over well with everyone. Like I said a while back, I gave a shining endorsement to the 11, and that one didn't go over well for everyone. There were a few people that were like, what are you doing? And I get it. But I think if you're sensitive to those kinds of notes, those kind of funky notes, this one it's going to be easier for you. But it is still here. It's not as forward. It goes in a more traditional direction. And there's no big surprises in here, but there is still a tiny touch of that. And that's just the house style. Because Bladnoch, regardless of the iteration, is a very unique whiskey. This one's not quite as like out there or weird or funky as a lot of its peers, but it's still Bladnoch and nothing else tastes like Bladnoch. And I always appreciate that. I always love characterful whiskeys where no matter what bottle you got from the brand, you know what you're drinking. Like, the taste of this DNA is unmistakable. That's what she said. Now, one thing I did notice about this stuff, and it's not a complaint, but I do want to complain about it for a moment, is that the nose promises a lot more freshness than what we get on the palate and the finish. And I'm a big fan of freshness in my whiskey. You guys know me. I love to keep it fresh. Jesus. But yeah, the nose is so bright and it's got that like refreshing, fruity, tart summariness, and I wanted it to stick around more on the palate. And the palate still overall gives us a bright, fresh, clean whiskey, but just a little bit less of that like tart, zingy, lemony goodness and more on vanilla. Still really good though. And really, I think that's my only complaint here. Everything else I think works. This is not as complex or as interesting as the other Bladnochs that I've tried, but it's also cheaper than all those Bladnochs, so that's to be expected. And even an expression like this, which is less challenging than a lot of its peers, is still recognizable, and that's why we like our characterful whiskeys. I think if you had an expression like this from a more, let's say, generic distillate, it could easily get lost in the crowd, but because this is a Bladnoch, it still stands out, and we recognize the DNA the moment it hits our mouth. Wink. So this whiskey is recommended. I'm giving it a score of 85. If we had a little bit more complexity, a little bit more stuff going on, obviously that score would go higher, but it is a substantial whiskey and it's got great flavor, so it's a good one. So naturally, if you're a Bladnoch fan, check this one out. If you want a good summer sipper that's got, those bright, fresh, clean flavors, check this one out. If you're a fan of characterful whiskeys, check this one out. It checks a lot of boxes. So yeah, I'm happy with this stuff. It's a great bottle. It's going down easy. Now, if you've tried the 11-year-old or the 10-year-old, obviously you do have to temper your expectations. This one is cheaper. It's a simpler whiskey. It's very straightforward, but it's got the quality house style and it works. So for value, I think we're pretty good. It's not cheap entry level, it's expensive entry level. It's at the high end of entry level in my market, but because it's a characterful whiskey, I'm okay biting the bullet and paying a little bit more for it. And I would say it's worth the money. All right, that's it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to help support the channel, I do have the Patreon. Otherwise, you can like, comment, and subscribe. Always appreciated. I want to know if you've tried this stuff. Have you tried the other Bladnochs that I mentioned? How do you feel about them? How do you feel about the brand overall? Do you get the funk? Let me know your thoughts on Bladnoch down below. Finally, down below in the comments, you can also let me know what you want to see me review next, and I'll keep it in mind for my upcoming videos. Bye, guys.